I stared at the divorce papers scattered across the polished mahogany table, my signature still wet on the final page. 3 years of marriage turned to ash in 20 minutes of legal formalities. Ernest sat across from me, his wedding ring already gone, leaving a pale band around his finger like a ghost of promises broken. "Bailey, you know this is for the best," he said, not meeting my gray eyes. "Best for who?" I pushed the papers toward him. "You or your secretary?" The courthouse felt suffocating. 20 years I'd walked these halls as a prosecutor, commanding respect, fighting for justice. Now I was just another statistic, another woman who couldn't keep her husband interested. My hands shook as I gathered my purse. Ernest was already at the door, eager to start his new life. No goodbye, no apology for the 3 years of lies he'd finally confessed to. Not 6 months like he'd claimed during mediation. 3 damn years. The studio apartment on Fortification Street looked smaller than it had yesterday. Boxes labeled Bailey Personal sat stacked against the wall like monuments to failure. I'd gone from a colonial house with a garden to 400 square feet of beige walls and scratched hardwood. I found the photo album buried beneath law books. Our wedding day smiled back at me, all white lace and false promises. I'd believed in forever then. Believed in the fairy tale my mother never had. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Lucas. "How'd it go?" "It's done," I typed back. "Want to grab dinner?" "Rain check. Need to unpack." I lied. I needed to cry, and I refused to fall apart in front of anyone. Not even Lucas, who'd warned me about Ernest from the beginning. Smart kid, 2 years younger but always saw through people's bullshit better than I did. Monday morning hit like a slap. The Hinds County Courthouse buzzed with familiar energy, but whispers followed me through the halls. Everyone knew. Small-town legal community meant no secrets, especially when you're prosecuting white-collar crime and your personal life implodes. "Bailey Morgan, back to save the world," my paralegal Jennifer said, but her smile held pity. Something like that. She handed me case files. "Henderson fraud case goes to trial next month. Defense attorney is supposed to be sharp." Aren't they always? I buried myself in witness statements, depositions, financial records. Numbers don't lie, unlike husbands. This case could make my career, get me noticed by the state attorney general's office, maybe even a federal appointment someday. My desk phone rang. "Ms. Morgan? This is Ivy Nelson from Nelson & Associates. I'm defending Robert Henderson." The voice was smooth, confident. "Professional. Ms. Nelson. I assume you're calling about discovery?" "Actually, I wanted to introduce myself properly. I believe in keeping things cordial between opposing counsel." "How refreshing." I flipped through Henderson's file. "Your client embezzled $2 million from a children's charity. Allegedly embezzled. And I intend to prove otherwise." Something in her tone made me sit up straighter. This wasn't going to be easy. "I look forward to it, Ms. Nelson." After hanging up, I stared out my office window at the Mississippi State Capitol dome. 5 years ago, I thought I'd have everything figured out by now. Career, marriage, maybe kids. Instead, I was starting over at 38, going up against some hotshot defense attorney who probably graduated law school when I was already prosecuting felonies. I opened Henderson's file again. Time to focus on what I did best. Putting criminals in prison where they belonged. Jackson Evers International Airport felt like purgatory on a Tuesday afternoon. Flight 447 to Atlanta had been delayed 4 hours due to weather, and the conference on federal prosecution techniques wasn't getting any closer. I sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, nursing my 3rd cup of airport coffee and reviewing witness statements for the 100th time. The terminal buzzed with frustrated travelers. A businessman yelled into his phone about missed meetings. A mother wrestled with 2 screaming toddlers. College students sprawled across chairs, earbuds blocking out the chaos. I preferred the chaos to the silence of my empty apartment. "Excuse me, are you a lawyer?" I looked up to find a blonde woman standing beside my chair, holding a crossword puzzle book. She was maybe 40, with striking blue eyes and a confident smile that suggested she wasn't easily intimidated. "What gave me away?" "Legal briefs scattered everywhere. Plus you look like you're preparing for battle." I gathered my papers. "Bailey Morgan. And you're right, I am. Ivy Nelson." She gestured to the empty chair beside me. "Mind if I join you? This delay is killing me." "Nelson." The name clicked. "You're Henderson's defense attorney." Her smile widened. Small world. Or small state. You're the prosecutor who wants to put my client in prison. Your client embezzled from a children's charity. Allegedly. She sat down anyway, crossing her legs. But since we're stuck here for 4 hours, maybe we can call a temporary truce? I studied her face. Sharp cheekbones, laugh lines around her eyes, no wedding ring. She wore a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Everything about her screamed successful, confident, dangerous. What did you have in mind? She held up the crossword puzzle. 7 across. Legal principle ensuring fair treatment. 12 letters. Due process. Perfect. She penciled in the letters, 15 down. Court order requiring appearance. 7 letters. Subpoena. We worked through the puzzle together, her pen moving quickly across the page. She knew literature, history, pop culture. I found myself laughing at her commentary about the ridiculous clues. Fictional lawyer known for Southern charm, she read. 11 letters. Atticus Finch. Too obvious. She tapped the pen against her lip. What about you? Why prosecution instead of defense? I sipped my coffee, considering. Someone has to fight for the victims. And someone has to fight for the accused. Even when they're guilty, everyone deserves a defense. Even embezzling accountants. She grinned. Allegedly embezzling accountants. The gate agent announced another delay. Groans echoed through the terminal. Ivy just shrugged and flipped to a new puzzle. Emotion felt when meeting someone special, she read. 10 letters, starts with A. I thought about Ernest, our first meeting at law school orientation. Nothing special about that. Just convenience, familiarity, settling for safe. Attraction, I said. She wrote it down, then looked at me. You married? Recently divorced. I'm sorry. Don't be. He wasn't worth keeping. Children? No you? Never married. Came close once, but she wanted kids, and I wanted my career. She. The word hung in the air between us. Ivy Nelson wasn't just the enemy attorney trying to destroy my case. She was a woman who dated women, sitting close enough that I could smell her perfume, looking at me like I was more than just opposing counsel. Feeling of discovering something unexpected, she read from the next clue. Surprise? Surprise, I spelled out. 9 letters. We spent the remaining hours working through 3 more puzzles, trading stories about difficult cases, impossible judges, clients who thought they knew better than their attorneys. She was brilliant, funny, passionate about justice in a way that reminded me why I'd loved law school. When they finally called for boarding, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Disappointment that the conversation was ending. Good luck with Henderson, she said, standing. Good luck defending him. She smiled. May the best attorney win. Walking toward the gate, I caught myself watching her move through the crowd. Confident, purposeful, completely at ease in her own skin. Everything I used to be before Ernest slowly eroded my confidence. I settled into my seat and realized I was looking forward to seeing her again, even if it meant facing off in court. The federal prosecution conference in Atlanta lasted 3 days of mind-numbing seminars on RICO prosecutions and financial crimes. I kept thinking about crossword puzzles and blue eyes, which annoyed me more than it should have. Ivy Nelson was the opposition, the enemy. I needed to remember that. Monday morning brought reality crashing back. The Henderson case file sat on my desk like a challenge. I'd spent weeks building my case against Robert Henderson, the accountant who'd systematically stolen money from the Mississippi Children's Foundation. $2 million meant for cancer treatments, educational programs, holiday gifts for kids in foster care. Jennifer knocked on my door. Henderson's attorney wants a pretrial conference. Set it up. She's here now. Damn. I smoothed my skirt, checked my reflection in the window. Professional, detached. This was just another case. Ivy Nelson walked into my office like she owned it. Same confident smile, different suit. This one was charcoal gray, perfectly fitted, expensive. She placed her briefcase on my desk and extended her hand. Ms. Morgan. Good to see you again. Her handshake lingered a moment too long. I pulled away first. Ms. Nelson. I assume you're here to discuss a plea bargain. Actually, I'm here to inform you that my client is completely innocent. I laughed. Your client's signature is on 200 fraudulent checks. Forged signatures are surprisingly easy to duplicate. She opened her briefcase, pulled out a stack of documents. Especially when the real culprit had access to all of Henderson's personal information. I scanned the papers. Handwriting analysis, computer forensics, financial records I'd never seen. My stomach dropped. Where did you get this? Private investigator, former FBI, very thorough. She leaned forward. Someone else was in that system, Ms. Morgan. Someone with administrative access who could manipulate records, forge signatures, cover their tracks. Who? The Foundation's executive director, Rebecca Walsh. The name hit me like ice water. Rebecca Walsh had been my star witness, the victim who'd discovered Henderson's alleged crimes. I'd built my entire case around her testimony. Rebecca Walsh reported the crime. Rebecca Walsh committed the crime. Ivy's voice was gentle but firm. She needed a scapegoat when the auditors got too close. Henderson was perfect, quiet, divorced, no family to fight for him. I stared at the forensic reports. If this evidence was legitimate, my case was dead. Worse, I'd been helping the real criminal send an innocent man to prison. Why bring this to me? Why not just present it in court? Because I don't think you're the kind of prosecutor who wants to convict an innocent man. She stood up. You strike me as someone who cares about justice, not just winning. Heat rose in my cheeks. You don't know me. I know you spent 4 hours doing crossword puzzles instead of trying to intimidate opposing counsel. Her smile softened. I know you chose prosecution because you want to protect victims, not create them. She was right, and I hated that she was right. I picked up the forensic analysis, my hands shaking slightly. I need time to verify this. Of course, but Bailey? The use of my first name made me look up. Henderson has already lost his job, his reputation, his savings fighting these charges. How much more time does he have to lose? After she left, I sat in my office staring at the evidence. My phone rang twice. I let it go to voicemail. If Ivy was right, if I'd been wrong about everything, then Rebecca Walsh had played me perfectly, used my desire for justice to destroy an innocent man. I called my investigator, gave him everything Ivy had provided. Verify all of this. Every signature, every computer login, every financial transaction. This could take weeks. You have 3 days. I drove home through Jackson's evening traffic, my mind spinning. The case that was supposed to make my career might be about to end it. Prosecuting an innocent man was every attorney's nightmare. It was also inexcusable. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Dinner tonight? We need to discuss strategy. Ivy. I stared at the message for 10 minutes. Discussing case strategy with opposing counsel was unethical at best. But if Henderson was innocent, we weren't really opponents anymore. We were both fighting for the same thing. Where? I typed back. Nick's restaurant. 7 o'clock. I changed clothes 3 times before settling on black slacks and a blue blouse. Professional but not severe. I told myself this was about the case, about justice, about making sure the right person went to prison. I told myself a lot of things that evening. None of them were entirely true. Nick's restaurant occupied a restored Victorian house in Jackson's Arts District, the kind of place where lawyers and politicians made deals over seafood and wine. I arrived 5 minutes early, nerves rattling like ice in a glass. This wasn't a date. This was 2 attorneys discussing a case. Nothing more. Ivy was already seated at a corner table, studying the menu. She'd changed from her courtroom attire into dark jeans and a cream silk blouse that made her blonde hair look almost silver in the candlelight. She looked up when I approached, her smile genuine and warm. I wasn't sure you'd come. Professional courtesy. I sat down, placing my purse deliberately between us on the table. A barrier. Besides, if Henderson is innocent, we have a problem. Not we, you. She signaled the waiter. I don't prosecute innocent people, that's your department. The waiter brought wine without being asked. Good red wine, expensive. Ivy had clearly been here before. My investigator is verifying your evidence, I said, accepting the glass. If it checks out, I'll drop the charges. Just like that? Justice isn't about winning, Miss Nelson. It's about finding the truth. Ivy. She raised her glass. And after 4 years of criminal defense, you're the first prosecutor I've met who actually believes that. We clinked glasses. The wine was smooth, complex, nothing like the cheap bottles Ernest used to bring home from the grocery store. Everything about this woman was different from my previous life. Sophisticated, confident, unafraid. She ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted. Normally that kind of presumption would annoy me. Instead, I found myself curious about her choices. Grilled salmon with risotto, side of asparagus. She'd noticed I ate healthy at the airport. "Tell me about Rebecca Walsh," she said. "Model witness until today. Discovered the missing funds during a routine audit, immediately reported it to the board, cooperated fully with police." I sipped my wine. If she's the real thief, she played it perfectly. She had to. Walsh has been skimming for 3 years. Small amounts that wouldn't trigger automatic alerts. But the foundation grew, brought in new donors, hired external auditors. Ivy leaned forward. She needed bigger money fast, enough to disappear before anyone noticed the pattern. So she takes $2 million in 6 months and frames Henderson. Henderson had access, no alibi, recent divorce that made him look desperate. Ivy's fingers traced patterns on the white tablecloth. Walsh probably planned to vanish after the trial, let everyone think justice was served. The food arrived. We ate in comfortable silence while jazz played softly from hidden speakers. I watched Ivy's hands as she cut her salmon, precise movements, no wasted motion. Everything about her was economical, purposeful. "What made you become a defense attorney?" I asked. "My father was a prosecutor in Memphis. 20-year career, hundreds of convictions, pillar of the community." Her voice grew quiet. "Turns out he was taking bribes from drug dealers, throwing cases, sending innocent people to prison while the guilty walked free. Damn. I was 12 when the FBI arrested him, watched them lead him away in handcuffs while reporters shouted questions. She met my eyes. That's when I learned that prosecutors aren't automatically the good guys. And defense attorneys are? Defense attorneys admit we're fighting for criminals. Prosecutors pretend they're fighting for justice." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "At least we're honest about our bias." I wanted to argue, but she had a point. How many cases had I prosecuted without questioning the evidence? How many defendants had I assumed were guilty simply because they'd been arrested? "What about you?" she asked. "Why prosecution?" "My mother was murdered when I was 16. Drive-by shooting, wrong place, wrong time." I took a larger sip of wine. "The prosecutor who handled the case, Sarah Mitchell, she made sure the killers went away forever. Treated my mother like she mattered. I'm sorry. Sarah became my hero. I wanted to be her, fighting for victims who couldn't fight for themselves." I laughed bitterly. Funny how heroes disappoint you eventually. We finished dinner talking about law school, difficult cases, judges we'd appeared before. Ivy was brilliant, articulate, passionate about defending the underdog. She made me remember why I'd loved the law before politics and ambition complicated everything. Outside the restaurant, Mississippi's autumn air carried the scent of magnolia and approaching rain. Ivy walked me to my car, our footsteps echoing on the brick sidewalk. "Thank you for dinner," I said, fishing for my keys. "And for the evidence. If Henderson is innocent..." "He is." My keys slipped from my hands, clattering to the ground. We both reached down simultaneously, our hands colliding as we grabbed for them. Ivy's fingers closed over mine, warm and steady. We straightened slowly, standing closer than we should, her perfume mixing with the night air. "Bailey," she whispered. Before I could think, before I could rationalize or make excuses, she leaned forward and kissed me. Soft, tentative, questioning. Everything Ernest's kisses had never been. My body responded before my mind caught up, lips parting, moving against hers like I'd been waiting my entire life for this moment. When we broke apart, I was breathing hard. Ivy's blue eyes searched my face. "I should go," I managed. "Should you?" I got in my car without answering, hands shaking as I started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I watched Ivy standing under the streetlight until I turned the corner. At home, I poured another glass of wine and sat on my couch, touching my lips where she'd kissed me. 38 years old, and I finally understood what people meant when they talked about chemistry. My investigator called Thursday morning with confirmation. Rebecca Walsh had been living beyond her means for 3 years, recent deposits to offshore accounts, computer access logs showing late-night system entries that matched the fraudulent transactions. Henderson was clean. I spent an hour drafting the motion to dismiss, then called the district attorney. "You're dropping the Henderson case?" District Attorney Williams sounded incredulous. Bailey, this was supposed to be your showcase. The evidence exonerates him. Walsh is the real criminal. Based on what? Defense attorney fairy tales? Based on forensic analysis and computer records. I kept my voice steady. I'm not prosecuting an innocent man. This makes us look incompetent. Prosecuting innocent people makes us criminal. After hanging up, I called Ivy. Motion to dismiss has been filed. Henderson's charges are dropped. Just like that? Justice, remember? I hesitated. Would you like to celebrate? Dinner tonight? I know a better place than Nick's. Pearl River Overlook, 8 o'clock. I spent the afternoon second-guessing myself. Not about dropping the charges. That was right. But about Ivy, about the kiss, about feelings I didn't understand. I'd never been attracted to women before. Hadn't even considered it. But something about Ivy made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. The Pearl River Overlook was a small park with walking trails and a wooden deck extending over the water. Ivy was waiting by the railing, silhouetted against the setting sun. She wore dark jeans and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. Henderson cried when I told him, she said as I approached. 43 years old, and he cried like a child. How long would he have gotten? 15 years minimum. Career over, reputation destroyed, family ashamed. She turned to face me. You saved his life today. You saved his life. I just did my job. Most prosecutors would have fought the motion, tried to salvage the case somehow. She moved closer. You put justice ahead of your career. We walked along the river trail, talking about Henderson, about Walsh's arrest that afternoon, about the media circus that would follow. But underneath the professional conversation, tension hummed between us like electricity. Can I ask you something? I said, as we reached a secluded bend in the path. Anything. How long have you known? About yourself, I mean. Since high school. You? Since Tuesday night. She laughed. Most people figure it out earlier than 38. I was married for 20 years, from college through last month. Unhappily? I thought it was normal. Marriage was supposed to be comfortable, predictable, safe. I stopped walking. I never felt what I felt when you kissed me. Ivy turned to face me, her eyes reflecting the moonlight on the water. What did you feel? Like I was finally awake. This time, I kissed her first, reaching up to cup her face, pulling her mouth down to mine. She responded immediately, arms circling my waist, body pressing against mine with an urgency that left me breathless. This wasn't the tentative kiss from Tuesday night. This was desire, need, recognition. Bailey, she whispered against my lips. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I. Her fingers tangled in my hair. But I know I haven't stopped thinking about you. We kissed until we were both shaking, until I couldn't remember why this was complicated. When we finally broke apart, Ivy rested her forehead against mine. Come home with me, she whispered. I should have said no, should have been practical, cautious, professional. Instead, I nodded. Ivy's loft occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse in downtown Jackson. Exposed brick walls, polished concrete floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. Everything was clean lines and sophisticated simplicity. Like Ivy herself. She poured wine while I examined her bookshelf. Legal texts mixed with poetry, biographies, fiction. A woman of depth, complexity, intelligence. Second thoughts? She asked, handing me a glass. Constant thoughts. But not second thoughts. She set down her wine and moved to stand in front of me. I want to be clear about something. This isn't casual for me. I don't usually get involved with opposing counsel. I don't usually get involved with women. First time? First time. Her smile was gentle, patient. Then, we'll go slow. But slow became impossible when she kissed me again, when her hands traced the line of my jaw, when she whispered my name like a prayer. I'd never known my body could respond this way, never known touch could be worship instead of obligation. With Ernest, intimacy had been routine, scheduled, perfunctory. With Ivy, every sensation was new, overwhelming, perfect. We moved to her bedroom without breaking the kiss, hands exploring, clothes disappearing, boundaries dissolving. When she laid me down on her bed, when she looked at me like I was beautiful, precious, desired, I finally understood what I'd been missing all those years with Ernest. This wasn't just physical. This was connection, recognition, coming home to myself. Afterward, lying in her arms while rain began pattering against the windows, I felt complete for the first time in my adult life. No regrets? Ivy asked, fingers tracing lazy patterns on my shoulder. Only that it took me 38 years to figure this out. Some things are worth waiting for. I kissed her temple, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, and wondered how I'd survived so long feeling only half alive. The next 3 weeks blurred together like watercolors in rain. Secret meetings became routine, coffee at sunrise before court, lunch in small cafes on the outskirts of Jackson, evening walks through neighborhoods where no one would recognize us. I was falling in love for the first time in my life, and it terrified me. "You're glowing," Jennifer said Friday morning, dropping case files on my desk. "New face cream?" Something like that. I couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't explain that Ivy Nelson had shown me what happiness felt like. The legal community was small, gossipy, unforgiving. A prosecutor dating a defense attorney would be scandalous enough. A prosecutor discovering she was gay at 38 would be career suicide. My phone buzzed. Text from Ivy. "Lunch at the Mayflower? Miss you." I'd seen her 12 hours ago. She'd made breakfast in her kitchen wearing nothing but my shirt from the night before, looking so beautiful it hurt to watch her move around the apartment like domestic bliss was normal, natural, ours. "Can't today. Williams wants to review the Walsh prosecution." "Dinner then. My place. I'll cook." I smiled despite myself. Ivy's cooking consisted of takeout from expensive restaurants arranged on actual plates. She was brilliant in court, hopeless in the kitchen, and completely unashamed of both facts. District Attorney Williams called me into his office at 3. He sat behind his massive desk like a judge pronouncing sentence. Gray hair perfectly styled, expression unreadable. "The Walsh case is getting media attention," he said without preamble. "Channel 12 wants an interview." "About the prosecution?" "About how we caught the mistake before convicting an innocent man." He leaned back. "You're becoming quite the crusader for justice, Bailey. Some people are impressed." "And others?" "Others wonder if you're getting soft. First you marry a cheating husband, now you're letting defense attorneys do your job for you." Heat flooded my cheeks. "Excuse me?" Ivy Nelson provided the evidence that cleared Henderson. "Makes you look either incompetent or naive. Makes me look like someone who cares about convicting the right person. Or like someone who's too close to opposing counsel." His eyes narrowed. "You have been seen with her quite a bit lately." My heart stopped. "We've discussed several cases. At Nick's restaurant, Pearl River Overlook, the Mayflower Cafe." He ticked off locations like evidence in a trial. "People talk, Bailey. Lawyers gossip worse than church ladies." I kept my expression neutral through sheer force of will. "Miss Nelson is a respected attorney. Professional discussions are normal." "Professional discussions, yes. Personal relationships, no." He stood up. "Be careful, Bailey. Your career is more fragile than you think." I drove straight to Ivy's office, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Her secretary waved me through without announcement. Ivy looked up from legal briefs spread across her desk, smile faltering when she saw my face. "What's wrong?" I closed the door, checked to make sure no one was listening. "Williams knows." "Knows what?" "About us. Someone's been watching, reporting back." I paced to the window. "My career is over." "Bailey, stop." Ivy stood up, moved toward me. "He doesn't know about us. He suspects we're friends. In Mississippi, that might be enough." She reached for my hands, but I pulled away. Too risky. Her office had windows facing the hallway, other attorneys walking past constantly. "Come to dinner Sunday," she said quietly. "I'll invite your brother. Make it look social, casual." "Lucas?" "You said he's protective of you. Let him meet me properly. If he approves, people will assume we're just friends." It was a good plan. Lucas had been asking about my improved mood, my sudden interest in weekend activities. He'd probably be relieved to know I was socializing instead of hiding in my apartment eating takeout and reviewing case files. Sunday afternoon found me standing in Ivy's kitchen, watching her panic over pot roast that looked perfectly fine. She'd spent all morning cleaning an apartment that was already spotless, changing clothes 3 times, preparing conversation topics like she was arguing before the Supreme Court. "He's just my brother," I said, adjusting her collar. "Not the parole board." He's the most important person in your life. I want him to like me. The doorbell saved us from further discussion. Lucas stood in the hallway holding flowers and wearing his best button-down shirt, brown hair freshly cut, green eyes curious. At 40, he looked more like my twin than my younger brother. You must be Ivy. He handed her the flowers with a genuine smile. Bailey's told me a lot about you. All good, I hope. She says you're brilliant in court and terrible in the kitchen. Both accurate. Ivy's laugh was nervous but real. Come in. Fair warning, the pot roast might be an adventure. Lucas charmed her within minutes, asking about her cases, her law school experience, her thoughts on criminal justice reform. By the time we sat down to dinner, Ivy was relaxed, animated, her natural intelligence and humor on full display. So you're the one who proved Henderson was innocent, Lucas said, cutting his perfectly cooked pot roast. Your sister proved he was innocent. I just provided the evidence. Bailey says you saved her career. Bailey saved Henderson's life. Ivy met my eyes across the table. She could have fought my evidence, tried to salvage the prosecution. Instead, she did the right thing. Sounds like my sister. Lucas raised his wine glass. To doing the right thing, even when it's hard. We clinked glasses and I felt something shift. Lucas approved, more than approved. He genuinely liked Ivy, respected her intelligence, appreciated how she talked about me with obvious admiration. After dinner, Lucas helped clear dishes while Ivy and I stood at the window watching the sun set over Jackson's skyline. She stood close enough that I could feel her warmth, far enough that casual observers would see only friendship. He likes you, I murmured. He loves you. I can see why. Lucas joined us at the window. Ivy, you should come to the firm's Christmas party next month. Bailey needs someone to keep her from talking shop all evening. I'd love to. After Lucas left, Ivy and I cleaned dishes in comfortable silence. Normal, domestic, perfect. Like this was our life, our routine, our future. Thank you, I said, drying the last plate. For what? For making this feel possible. She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Tomorrow we'd go back to being careful, professional, secretive. Tonight we were just two women in love, planning our future one small step at a time. The weeks following Lucas's approval felt like borrowed time. Ivy and I grew bolder, spending entire weekends at her loft, talking about moving in together, about coming out to colleagues, about building a life that didn't require constant secrecy. I'd never been happier, which should have been a warning. I've been thinking, Ivy said over coffee Saturday morning, her blonde hair catching the sunlight streaming through her kitchen windows. Maybe we should take a trip, get away from Jackson for a while. Where? Natchez. Historic mansions, antique shops, bed and breakfasts where nobody knows us. She reached across the table to touch my hand. We could be ourselves for a whole weekend. The idea terrified and thrilled me. 3 days of holding hands in public, sharing meals without watching over our shoulders, sleeping in the same bed without worrying about who might see us leave together in the morning. When? Next weekend. I'll book the carriage house at Monmouth Historic Inn. I called in sick Friday, something I'd never done for personal reasons. Ivy picked me up at dawn, her BMW loaded with overnight bags and a cooler full of wine and cheese. She wore jeans and a soft blue sweater, no makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Beautiful in a way that made my chest tight. Ready for our first real weekend together? She asked as we pulled onto Highway 61. I've been ready for months. The drive to Natchez took 2 hours through Mississippi Delta country. Cotton fields stretched to the horizon, broken by small towns that looked frozen in time. Ivy held my hand while she drove, thumb tracing circles on my palm, and I felt like a teenager experiencing her first love. Tell me about the inn, I said. Built in 1818, 30 acres of gardens, antique furnishings, complete privacy. She glanced at me. The carriage house has its own entrance. No one will bother us. Sounds perfect. I want this weekend to be perfect. For us. Monmouth Historic Inn rose from manicured grounds like something from a movie. Greek Revival architecture, massive columns, wraparound porches that belonged in another century. The carriage house sat behind the main building, brick and ivy and completely secluded. Our room was elegant, romantic, private. 4-poster bed with white linens, fireplace with fresh flowers on the mantel, French doors opening onto a private garden. Ivy tipped the bellhop and closed the door behind him. What do you think? I think I love you. The words escaped before I could stop them. We'd been dancing around the sentiment for weeks, showing it in touches and glances and careful gestures, but never saying it out loud. Ivy crossed the room in 3 steps, cupped my face in her hands. I love you too. Have for weeks. We spent the afternoon exploring Natchez, touring antebellum mansions, browsing antique shops, walking hand in hand through historic districts. For 6 hours, we were just another couple on vacation, and it felt like freedom. I want to do this forever, I said, as we watched the sunset from the bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. Which part? All of it. Being with you, not hiding. Soon, she promised. After the holidays, after your career stabilizes, we'll figure out how to make this public. Dinner at the inn's restaurant was candlelit and intimate. Ivy ordered champagne to celebrate our first real weekend together, and I felt giddy with possibility. This was what happiness looked like. This was what love felt like. I have something to tell you, Ivy said over dessert. Good something or bad something? I've been offered a position with a firm in New Orleans. Federal criminal defense, major cases, twice my current salary. My heart stopped. Congratulations. I haven't accepted yet. Why not? Because of you. Because of this. She gestured between us. I don't want to leave Jackson if it means losing you. You can't turn down that opportunity for me. I can if you'll come with me. The suggestion hung between us like a challenge. Leave Jackson, leave my job, leave everything I'd built for the past 20 years. Start over in a new city with the woman I loved. Bailey? I need to think about it. Sunday morning dawned clear and cold. We packed slowly, reluctant to end our perfect weekend. Ivy loaded the car while I took one last look at the carriage house, memorizing details, storing happiness for the difficult conversations ahead. The drive home started quietly. Ivy seemed lost in thought, probably planning her response to the New Orleans offer. I watched the familiar landscape roll past and tried to imagine leaving Mississippi, leaving the life I'd spent decades building. We should talk about this, I said, as we turned onto Highway 61. About New Orleans? About us, about what we want. I want you, Bailey. Everything else is negotiable. She reached for my hand, fingers intertwining with mine. I squeezed back, trying to communicate everything I felt but couldn't quite say out loud. That's when I saw the pickup truck running the red light at the intersection ahead. Time slowed to crystalline clarity. Ivy's profile as she turned toward the approaching vehicle. Her hands jerking the steering wheel hard left. The sickening crunch of metal against metal. Then darkness. I woke up in the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Fluorescent lights burning my eyes, machines beeping around my bed. Lucas sat in the chair beside me, his face pale and drawn. Hey, he said softly. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck. I tried to sit up, winced at the pain in my ribs. Where's Ivy? His expression went carefully neutral. She's here, in the hospital. How bad? Broken collarbone, concussion. She's been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days. I'd lost 2 days. I need to see her. Bailey, you can't walk yet. You have 3 broken ribs and a concussion. I need to see her now. Lucas helped me into a wheelchair, pushed me through corridors that smelled of antiseptic and fear. Ivy lay in the intensive care unit, connected to monitors, her blonde hair stark against the white pillow. She looked fragile, vulnerable, nothing like the confident attorney who'd changed my life. The doctors say she should wake up soon, Lucas said. Brain scans look good. I wheeled closer to her bed, reached for her hand. It felt cold, lifeless. Ivy, can you hear me? Her eyelids fluttered, opened slowly. Blue eyes, unfocused, confused. She blinked several times, trying to focus. Hi, I whispered. You're safe. You're in the hospital. She stared at me without recognition. I'm sorry, do I know you? The words hit me like ice water. Ivy, it's me, Bailey. I don't understand. She looked around the room, at Lucas, at the machines, at me. Who are you people? The neurologist, Dr. Peterson, spoke in measured tones that did nothing to soften the blow. Retrograde amnesia following severe head trauma. She's lost approximately 6 months of memory, possibly more. The recent memories are most vulnerable. Will she remember me? I asked from my wheelchair, ribs aching with each breath. Memory recovery is unpredictable. Some patients recover completely, others... He shrugged. We'll know more in the coming weeks. Lucas wheeled me to Ivy's room every day. She was polite, professional, treating me like a stranger who'd wandered into her hospital room by mistake. The doctors had explained that I was involved in the accident, that we'd been colleagues, but nothing sparked recognition. I'm sorry, she said each time I visited. I know you're trying to help, but I don't remember you. 5 days into her recovery, I brought a crossword puzzle book, the same brand we'd worked on in the airport, pages dog-eared from use. I sat beside her bed, open to a half-finished puzzle. 7 across, I read. Legal principle ensuring fair treatment. 12 letters. Due process, she answered automatically. Good. 15 down. Court order requiring appearance. 7 letters. Subpoena. She looked at the book with interest. I like puzzles. I know. We worked through 3 puzzles that afternoon. Ivy's legal knowledge was intact, her wit sharp as ever. But when I mentioned the airport delay, the coffee shop meetings, the dinners at Nick's restaurant, her expression remained blank. I'm sorry, she said again. I wish I could remember. The next week, I returned to work against doctor's orders. Sitting at home thinking about Ivy's empty stare was driving me crazy. Better to lose myself in case files, pretend my heart wasn't broken. Jennifer brought coffee and sympathy. Any change? She knows who I am now. Bailey Morgan, prosecutor. We've worked cases together. I sorted through mail without really seeing it. Nothing else. Give it time. The doctors say she might never remember. That the memories could be gone forever. Then you'll make new ones. 6 weeks after the accident, Ivy returned to her law practice. She called to discuss a case, her voice professional and distant. No warmth, no recognition of everything we'd shared. I wanted to thank you, she said. For what? My assistant found your business cards in my office. Notes about dinners, case strategies. Apparently we worked together quite a bit. We did. I'm sorry I don't remember. I know that must be difficult. Don't apologize. You didn't choose this. I started visiting her office, bringing crossword puzzles, sharing coffee, trying to rebuild our friendship from scratch. She was the same woman, brilliant, funny, passionate about justice, but the connection we'd shared, the electricity between us, was gone. Why do you keep coming here? She asked one December afternoon as we finished a puzzle. Because I like working with you. You're a good attorney. Is that all? I looked up from the crossword. What do you mean? Sometimes I feel like there's something else, something I'm not remembering. She studied my face. Were we friends? Real friends? Yes. Close friends? My heart hammered against my ribs. Yes. How close? Before I could answer, her secretary knocked. Ms. Nelson? Your 4 o'clock is here. The moment passed. Ivy walked me to the elevator, her hand briefly touching my shoulder. Thank you for being patient with me. I know this can't be easy. You're worth it. That night, I sat in my apartment looking through photos on my phone. Pictures of Ivy laughing at dinner, sleeping in my bed, holding my hand at the river overlook. Evidence of a love affair she couldn't remember. Lucas brought Chinese takeout and brotherly concern. How are you holding up? Terribly. She's getting better, physically at least. But she doesn't remember me. Us. Any of it. Maybe that's for the best. I stared at him. How can you say that? Because hiding was killing you, sneaking around, lying to everyone, worrying about your career. He opened a container of lo mein. Maybe this is a chance to start over, do things differently. She doesn't love me anymore. She doesn't remember loving you. That's different. Is it? When you first met her, you didn't know you were gay. But something drew you to her. Intelligence, humor, that spark of recognition. He handed me chopsticks. Those things are still there. If it was real, if it was meant to be, it'll happen again. Christmas came and went in a blur of work and solitude. Ivy sent a professional holiday card, signed Ivy Nelson, attorney at law. No personal message, no acknowledgement of our destroyed relationship. New Year's Eve found me at the courthouse, working late on a fraud case. The building was empty, quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights. I was reviewing depositions when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Ivy appeared in my doorway, looking uncertain. I saw the lights. Working late? Always. Mind if I join you? I was driving around, didn't want to go home. She sat in the chair across from my desk, the same chair she'd occupied months ago when she'd brought evidence to clear Henderson. But tonight she seemed smaller, more fragile. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Before the accident, were we... She struggled for words. Did we mean something to each other? My hands stilled on the papers. What makes you ask? I found something in my apartment. A photo, hidden in a book. She pulled out a picture I'd forgotten I'd taken. Ivy and me at the Pearl River overlook, her arm around my waist, both of us smiling. We look happy, more than happy. Were we lovers? The question hung in the air between us like a bridge I was afraid to cross. Yes. I thought so. She studied the photo. I keep feeling like I'm missing something important. Like part of me is gone. Part of you is gone. The part that loved me. Maybe. She looked up, blue eyes searching my face. But I keep coming back to you, bringing puzzles, asking questions, looking for something I can't name. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't remember loving you. But I think I could learn to love you again. The next 3 months moved like spring rain, slow and steady and full of possibility. Ivy started coming to my office twice a week, bringing crossword puzzles and coffee, rebuilding our friendship one conversation at a time. Sometimes I caught her watching me with curious intensity, like she was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't quite make sense. Tell me about us, she said one March afternoon as we worked through a particularly difficult crossword. What do you want to know? Everything. How we met, what we talked about, why we fell in love. I told her about the airport, the delayed flight, the first time we'd worked puzzles together. About courtroom battles that turned into dinner conversations, about professional respect that became personal attraction. I left out the secrecy, the fear, the careful choreography of hiding our relationship. You make it sound simple, she said. Love is simple. Everything else is complicated. She was scheduled to start physical therapy at the hospital. Simple exercises to rebuild her strength, recover her balance, retrain her reflexes. I offered to drive her, and she accepted with something that looked like relief. I keep having dreams, she said during one of our drives. Fragments, really. Images that don't make sense. Like what? Us kissing in the rain, your laugh echoing in some restaurant, waking up next to you in a bed I don't recognize. She glanced at me. Are they memories trying to surface? Maybe. Were you happy? Before the accident? Happier than I'd ever been. Even though we had to hide? I braked carefully at a red light, surprised. I never told you we had to hide. I figured it out. Prosecutor and defense attorney, both women, small town. She smiled sadly. I may have lost my memory, but I didn't lose my brain. Does that bother you? The hiding? Or the fact that I fell in love with a woman? Both. Either. I've been thinking about that. She watched traffic move through the intersection. I can't remember being attracted to women before. But I can't remember being particularly attracted to men either. Maybe sexuality is more fluid than I thought. Maybe it's just about the person. Maybe it's just about you. That night, Ivy called. Can you come over? I want to show you something. I found her in her kitchen, standing over a pot of something that actually smelled good instead of burned. You're cooking? Attempting to cook. Pasta with marinara sauce. Even I can't mess up jarred sauce and boiled water. We ate dinner at her small table, talking about work, about her physical therapy progress, about everything except the growing tension between us. The old Ivy would have addressed it directly, but this version seemed more cautious, uncertain about reading signals she couldn't remember learning to interpret. I have something for you, she said after we finished eating. She disappeared into her bedroom, returned with a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver bracelet, simple and elegant, engraved with coordinates. It's the location of Pearl River Overlook, she said. I looked it up online, found the exact spot where we had our first kiss. Ivy, I know I can't remember falling in love with you, but I want to try falling in love with you again. She took my hand. If you're willing to be patient with me. I looked at her face, searching for some sign of the woman who'd changed my life. The confidence was still there, the intelligence, the dry humor. But something else too, vulnerability, uncertainty, hope. I've been patient for 4 months. I know. And I know it hasn't been fair to you. She stood up, moved around the table to stand beside my chair. I've been reading about amnesia, about memory recovery. The doctors say traumatic memories sometimes come back all at once, triggered by sensory experiences. What kind of sensory experiences? Instead of answering, she leaned down and kissed me. Soft, tentative, questioning. Nothing like the passionate kisses we'd shared before the accident. But when I responded, when my lips moved against hers, something shifted. She pulled back, eyes wide. I remember that. The way you taste, the way you kiss. Her hands framed my face. Bailey, I remember. What do you remember? Everything. The airport, Nick's restaurant, your apartment with all those boxes. Tears started streaming down her cheeks. The carriage house in Natchez. Telling you I loved you. The job offer in New Orleans. I stood up, pulled her against me, felt her arms circle my waist. How much do you remember? All of it. The accident, losing you, these past 4 months of feeling like half my soul was missing. She buried her face against my neck. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what you went through. Don't apologize. You came back to me. I never really left. She pulled back to look at me. Even when I couldn't remember loving you, I was drawn to you. Puzzle pieces finding their match. We moved to her couch, holding each other while she told me about the fragments that had been surfacing for weeks. Dreams that weren't dreams. Feelings that didn't make sense. The certainty that something important was missing from her life. The job offer, I said eventually. New Orleans. Still available, but I want to discuss it properly this time. She tucked her hair behind her ear, a gesture so familiar it made my chest tight. I don't want to make decisions about our future when you're still recovering from trauma. I'm not recovering. I'm different. We're different. How? I'm tired of hiding. Tired of being afraid. I took her hands. If you want to take the job in New Orleans, I'll come with you. Fresh start, new city, no one to hide from. Are you sure? I'm sure I love you. Everything else we can figure out. She kissed me again, deeper this time, familiar and new all at once. When we broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine. I have one more confession, she said. What? I never actually lost my memory completely. It started coming back 2 weeks ago. I pulled back, staring at her. What? I wanted to be sure. Sure that you loved me enough to start over. Sure that what we had was real and not just convenience or circumstance. Her smile was sheepish. I needed to know you'd choose me again. You manipulative, brilliant, impossible woman. Is that a yes to New Orleans? I kissed her instead of answering, pouring 4 months of fear and hope and desperate love into the connection between us. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. When do we leave? I whispered against her lips. As soon as you're ready. 6 months later, I stood in a New Orleans courtroom, prosecuting federal crimes instead of state ones, working cases that mattered on a larger scale. Ivy cross-examined witnesses 3 courtrooms over, brilliant and ruthless and completely herself again. We lived in a shotgun house in the Garden District, held hands walking to work, introduced each other as partners to neighbors and colleagues. No secrets, no hiding, no careful choreography of concealed affection. Sometimes I thought about Jackson, about the life I'd built there, about who I'd been before Ivy taught me who I could become. But regret felt impossible when I woke up every morning beside the woman who'd shown me what love actually meant. No second thoughts? Ivy asked one evening as we sat on our front porch, working a crossword puzzle in the fading light. Only that it took a car accident and temporary amnesia to get us here. Some people need dramatic incentives. Some people need the right puzzle partner. She laughed and kissed my temple, and I knew we'd found something worth every risk, every change, every brave choice that brought us to this moment.